it deserves a standing ovation. Thank you very much, sir.
We search for her, we look for her, we identified her, and appointed her as deputy registrar. We call it secretary of the College of Medicine. She changed the entire place. And as God will have it, she's now the registrar of this university. And we are seeing changes. May God help you. Amen. May God aid you. Amen. May God enhance you. Amen. We'll give you all our support. Take it for granted. We owe you. You don't owe us. And when I say that we owe you, we owe our nation. We are here not because of you per se, but because of our nation. And because of education. I, for one, am what I am today by the grace of God. And by the grace that He has given me to acquire some education. Education sets the captive free. Education lightens the tunnels, the dark tunnels of our country, of the entire world. Education makes you to be a front seater. It promotes you. It catapults you. But what is our country doing about education? Nigeria is paying lip service to education. And here we are talking about the summit, adding value for global relevance in a 21st century university, the place of the registry. The registry cannot exist in a vacuum. The registry service is a continuum within a continuum. You cannot play handle without the Prince of Denmark. Sorry, Professor Da Silva, I'm coming to your area. Pardon me. Apologies to you. How do you say you make it longer without air? You talk of money. We have to fund universities. We have to fund education. It has to be deliberate. It's a UN mandate, but Nigeria is paying lip service to it. And you are the University of Ibadan, they are undoubtedly the best of the best. But then, again, we go to the holy rate. Don't let us be like midgets. Are we giants among midgets? No. When we were young, over there in the University of Lagos, we were coming here, going to Ife, going to UNN, going to ABU. I was unfortunate to be a student union leader, but then with no regrets. Then, every country in the world, particularly within the Commonwealth, they were sending students to Nigeria. At Unilag, not less than 30. UI, not less than 40. Exchange programs, do we have that now? The ranking of Nigerian universities, yet we have UI coming first, followed by UNN, followed by our university, University of Lagos, and fourth, Obafemi Awolowo University. That's the latest of the ranking. But when we now go globally, according to the 2018 ranking, if you know, please go and check the web of universities' web metrics. University of Ibadan, the UNN, Obafemi Awolowo, and Unilag. In that order, respectively, University of Ibadan, globally, 1076. Then you have the UNN, 2187. Ife, 2230. And Unilag, 26. Unilag 2230, Ife. Obafemi Awolowo 2672. What are we talking about? It's part of what this summit should address. Come up with a community and let the powers that be appreciate, let them wake up. We must fund education. The Sunday Vanguard of a newspaper of 8th April 2018, It thundered. Front page headline. Education gets a paltry 3.9 trillion out of 55.19 trillion in 10 years. And I want to read what the newspaper editor has said. Indeed, the federal government allocation to the education in the last 10 years has been miserly. Out of a budget of 45 trillion, only 3 trillion or 7% was allocated to education. Where are we heading for? If we don't fund education, then we are doing injustice. We are through our national anthem. We are talking of peace and justice. You can only have peace and justice when you give people education. And then, to us who are putting on the gown, let us relate to the time. What is happening in our land? We are all here. The summit, I hope will come to address it. I made mention of this at the 22nd convocation lecture, which I delivered at the State University some time ago. What is the salary of a professor, of a senior lecturer, of a registrar of a university? Just composing it with what a local government chairman earns. Let me just refresh our minds, our memories. A professor in a joint university, I don't know what the vice chancellor gets as VC, maybe allowances here and there, or total, maybe about 4 million per annum. But a professor is 3,859,000. And a local government chairman is paid 13,865,000. No wonder you now have professors who are digging it out. Pardon my language. Please pardon me. Digging it out to become local government chairman or local government councillor. A councillor is paid 12,746,000. A member of the House of Representatives is paid 35,932,000. A senator goes home with 36,677,000. That's the ones we know. We don't know the packages. We don't know the incidentals. We have to address this. The word of God says, my people perish for lack of knowledge. But you can only acquire knowledge if you fund knowledge. I hope I'm not taking too much of your time. How do you are saying you want adding values for global relevance in a 21st century university. Surely, UI is a 21st century university. Ever I would dare say that UI is a university for all times, if the Lord tarries. We are happy and we are so lucky to have as keynote speaker a lady of ladies, a sumptuous, an intellectual. If in law profession we don't have ladies, we call ourselves gentlemen. But she's a lady of ladies, a lady of the highest order, our sister. I know she will do justice to it. I don't want to preempt her, and I don't want to preempt anybody. I want to appreciate you for inviting me to come and share this summit. It's my pleasure being here, and by virtue of the powers vested in me, I declare this summit open.
Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, it deserves a standing ovation. Thank you very much, sir. I love summits, workshops, conferences, because it's an opportunity for the old and the new to meet and mingle. We all saw her and we could not help but notice her coming. The head is completely white. It is a sign of old age that she's old and she has weathered many storms of life. And it's an opportunity for us, the young ones that are coming behind, to meet with the legends of the Registry of the University of Ibadan. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, please let's put our hands together for Mama Mrs. Rachel Adeboye. She retired as a deputy registrar years and years ago. Thank you guys for recognition. All deputy registrars, please rise. Thank you very much. Àwọn tó ń bá register gbé registry dúró nìyẹn o tí ò ṣe wó. Thank you very much. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, when I received the letter inviting me to be anchor of this program, it said you are going to be co-anchor at the program. And it's my pleasure to invite to the podium the co-anchor, my one and only sweetheart. Everybody knows that in the registry. It's my sweetheart. All the other girls get lonely. Because I can see the likes of Mrs. Ayodele, Mrs. Adeyinka, everybody looking at me. Today I am in charge. May I request Mr. Adetono to step forward. In the registry, we refer to him as the Chief Deputy Registrar. Yes, we all know that. And this is why he's my girlfriend. He's my boyfriend, you know, everybody knows that. Mr. Odedele, whatever you want to do, tell your brother today, Adetono is in charge here. Yes. But before I hand over to him, I'd just like to recognize the presence of somebody that just came in, the chairman of the University of Ibadan Ceremonials Committee, Dr. Omolola Atalabiola-Dele. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I thought he stood up with the other registrars. I'd just like to recognize the acting secretary to the college, Mr. Owojuigbe. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, my name is Adejoke Olufunke Akinpelu. Although the university has christened me Adejoke A. Akinpelu, my name is Adejoke O. Akinpelu, and I hand over to Mr. Adetono.
Thank you very much. Actually, God created me on a Monday. That is why I'm very, very handsome. Thank you. Well, how do I introduce her? Because many years ago, about 19 years ago, she employed me as administrative officer of this university. Always looking beautiful, ageless. I hope she's not going to issue me a query anyway. In all history, and that is the truth, we use the past to justify the present, and the present to project into the future. I'm very pleased this morning to introduce Mama Mojila Depo, an astute administrator who, though retired from public service, is still very active. A member of the prestigious National Institute for Policy and Strategic Studies, Kuru, Jos. Chief Ladipo was the first female registrar of the University of Ibadan and the longest serving chairman of CONU. Can we please give her a round of applause for that? She was the first Nigerian registrar and first black female from Africa to present a paper at AUA, UK. She's an associate expert, publications and administration at the Institute of African Culture and International Understanding, IACIU. Our mentorship efforts have produced several registrars and many budding career administrators. She was also featured in the Who in Nigeria as an educational administrator par excellence. Presently, she is the Chief Executive Officer of Edit Made Concepts Limited. Ma, when you engaged me 19 years ago, I remembered I wrote exam. I was wondering, why should I write exam to be engaged? Later, some months after, I had to face an oral interview. Some weeks later, I received a letter. And on the 24th May 2000, she invited me to her office. I said, young man, you are very handsome. I was so happy for a registrar to say you are very handsome. And I'm still handsome though. Today she is our keynote speaker. And the title of our lecture is Footprints in the Sands of Time, UI Registry at 70. Please permit me to welcome Mrs. Mujisola Ladeko.
After all those who had spoken before me, I stand here trembling, but I know that by the special grace of God, I will deliver my paper. I do not want to go through the protocol list. I respect the protocol as it had been, but all the same, I must acknowledge Professor Wole Akonde, who I worked with, first as Dean of Postgraduate School, Dean of Postgraduate in the then Faculty of Medicine, and then as the first Dean and the first Provost. I can say that the college may not have been what it is today, but for the immense contribution of Professor Wole Akonde. I must also appreciate the chairman of this occasion, who I know is very busy, but has decided to wait for my paper. And finally, our able, not Abel, able, Idowu Ogbo, Olayinka. The title of my paper is Footprints in the Sand of Time, the Registry, University of Ibadan at 70. While we are living in the present, we must celebrate life, knowing that what we are doing is going to become history. With every action, with every deed, we are making history. Matis Stepanek. University of Ibadan is 70. A 70th birthday is by all means a milestone worth celebrating. It is said that it is the year, if you are human, that you start being referred to as an old person. My grandson will look at me and say, "Grandma, you are so old." It's also a bridge to a new age whereby certain physical attributes begin to go downhill rather rapidly. But in my own case, I want to say I am not old. I wake up, I lift my arms, I bend my knees, I turn my neck, and everything does crack. But I came to the conclusion that I am not old, I am crispy. Yet, it could be the age when, with the benefit of hindsight and truths experienced over the years, one can finally come into his or her own. And I do say that I am convinced that as we age, we approach perfection. We celebrate we celebrate the University of Ibadan today at 70, and we say it is old, being the first. And this statement that the University of Ibadan is the first has been vehemently repudiated by many non-UIs, especially apologists for the University of Ibadan, Nsukka campus, the University of Ibadan, Zaria campus, and with all due apologies, the University of Ibadan, Lagos campus. Even the great Professor Fafunwa placed UI as fifth and cubed that, although Ibadan was the oldest higher education institution in Nigeria, by irony of fate, it was the last of the first generation universities to be made a degree granting institution. In my humble but very biased opinion, it's a matter of semantics, whether Ibadan is the first university or the first higher education institution in Nigeria. However, Ibadan's acclaimed status as the best is incontrovertible. And this has been confirmed not only by the National Universities Commission, but even by our worst enemies, both nationally and internationally. Ibadan has made significant contributions to development, and by its very existence as the bastion of excellence, ticks all the boxes and sets the pace for others to follow. However, when we are talking of age, we have to consider these universities. Al-Quran, founded in 859 AD. Bologna, 1088. Oxford, 1096. Salamanca, 1134. Cambridge, 1209. Aberdeen, 1495. And Algiers, 1909. You'll all agree with me that when we compare Ibadan to these institutions, it is still in embryo. It's not even yet born. But it is a prodigious one because it has defied all known natural and scientific knowledge by fathering and mothering many children while itself still in formative stage. Where would the higher education landscape in Ibadan be today without the structure, the knowledge, the human and material resources generously bestowed upon it by the University of Ibadan? Almost all the first, second, third, fourth, and even the new public and private universities have benefited through the dispersal of the Ibadan tradition by carrying along former teachers, administrators, and so on. And so those universities clearly bear the stamp of our great university. I congratulate our university and wish her many more years. The registry at 70. This address is to flag off this summit, fashioned to herald the platinum jubilee of the university. What better time to go down memory lane and evaluate the ebb and the flow of the fortunes of the registry in the last 70 years and the actors and, I will not say actresses, who influenced its destiny. It is said that if you don't know where you are coming from, you are not likely to understand how you got to your present destination, and thus may not be able to navigate your future. Thus, I shall be taking a trip down memory lane with the intention of highlighting the events and the personalities that have shaped, either by their acts of commission or omission, the registry of the University of Ibadan, results of which today are the realities of the registry in all universities in Nigeria. For this purpose, I have heavily whereas not everyone could teach, anybody can administer. From these humble beginnings, perhaps manned by unlettered people, a strong virile registry was born, not without the pangs and pains of childbirth and nurturing, but with determination and doggedness, and many times at great personal cost. The rise and rise of the registry. Now, let us praise our illustrious men, and I add women. Some wielded authority as kings and were renowned for their strength. Others were intelligent advisors and uttered prophetic sayings. Others directed the people by their advice, by their understanding of the popular mind, and by the wise words of their teaching. Some of them left a name behind them, so that their praises are still sung today, while others, unfortunately, have left no memory and disappeared as though they never existed. May that not be our portion in Jesus' name. And I took that from the Bible. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, fasten your seatbelts and come along with me down memory lane. The formative years, 1948 to 1960. The registrar that did the pioneer job was Mr. F.P.J. Hunter from 1948 to 51. He was the first registrar at UCI. And he served under Dr. Mellanby. He was a chartered accountant and a former deputy registrar of the University College of Wales. Can you imagine that? The registry was actually funded by an accountant. The bursary must be very happy. The entire registry comprised 6 members. The registrar himself, 1 assistant registrar in terms of admission and records, an assistant registrar in charge of finance. So the bursary itself started in the registry. And then they had a warden, a domestic bursar, and a secretary to the principal. The registrar was the head of the administrative staff and coordinator of all the operations of the college, and was also the secretary to the academic board and the provisional council. In other words, the registrar was chief administrative officer, responsible for the general administration of the institution, and secretary to the organs of governance from inception, a structure that has survived to this day. But in terms of the interpretation, this was to eventually create a problem. In the beginning, the duties of the registrar were not so clearly delineated. The principal took over duties that were appropriately those of the registrar, to such an extent that the ICU visitation panel of 1952 indicated that the principal, that's Mellanby, had assumed a degree of personal authority and decision no longer appropriate to a mature college. And I quote that, what they said. They said, duties that are properly the registrars have tended to be discharged by the principal, who thus become involved in administrative detail and routine. The position of the principal and the registrar in relation to one another has become uncertain, almost as if the registrar were an assistant to the principal. And we have seen that today. A lot of registrars are like personal assistants to their vice chancellors. Of course, with this scenario, the personal relationship between the two was corrosive, to the extent that a lot of memos flew between them with charges of nepotism, Onyibo, two Onyibos, nepotism, oppression, and high-handedness against the principal. The grounds were then set for the bitter and sometimes unsavory relationship between vice chancellors and registrars, and between academia and the service departments, as exemplified by the registry, as we shall see later in this story. As it was in the beginning, is now, and hopefully shall not be like that. It should be noted that the few academic staff were equally frustrated and suspicious of arbitrariness in decision-making, as they tended to see themselves, and I quote, as departmental delegates rather than academic heads with responsibilities. Yet, Tamuno in 1973 concluded that between 1948 and 1952, UCI was unfortunate in its choice of a registrar required to work with such a dynamic leader as Mellambe, who tried to be principled in word and deed. This was in spite of the pedigree of Mr. Hunter, a chartered accountant, an experienced administrator, and a former military officer who was then 56 years old, working with a young, administratively inexperienced, but determined 32-year-old principal. Apparently, the ICU visitation panel was not swayed by Dr. Mellambe's opinion of the scope of his powers. Despite all the imbroglio and personality clashes, the registrar held his own as far as his professional opinions and administrative due processes were concerned, a trait that some of the later registrars would display and which would earn them the wrath of their academic overlords, as well as a few disgruntled collaborators within their registry. In conclusion, we can say that a firm foundation in terms of structure was laid with all its sweat and toil, not only for the college, but for the entire university system in Nigeria by Mr. Hunter. There must be something in that name. So I now go to the registrar who consolidated Mr. W.A. Husband, 1951 to 53. I wonder how many of us were born by that time. He served Dr. Kenneth Mellambe and Professor Sanders, and that's him. Essentially, this period was one of consolidation. He consolidated the established structure of the registry. According to Fafunwa, the administrative staff had more than doubled to enable the academic staff to give more attention to assuming greater responsibilities at faculty and college levels. By now, the student number had increased to 406, teachers had increased to 81, and non-teaching staff had increased to like 11. We go to the next era, the era of Nigerianization and expansion. Dr. S.O. Biobaku was registrar from 1953 to 57. He was the first Nigerian and the third registrar of the college. He served Dr. K. Mellambe, Dr. Tenan Sanders, and Mr. Parry. The Nigerianization of human resources, whether academic or non-teaching, had begun in preparation for the country's independence, which had been a major issue in the national polity, and because of the stringent cries of the nationalists. Professor Sanders had informed Council in 1955 that his aim was to create a Nigerian university with a Nigerian staff of the highest quality. Dr. Biobaku was appointed on 1st of August 1953. The ICU visitation panel's report by that time had helped to douse tension, and the emergence of Mr. Tennant Sanders, a 65-year-old zoologist, and his Secretary General, the former Secretary General to the faculties in Cambridge. He was a colonial administrator and obviously an experienced manager of human and material resources, became principal, and his assumption as principal made a lot of difference. What a difference maturity, experience, and humility in leadership can make. Tamuno tells us that Biobaku's partnership with Mellambe's successor, Professor Sanders, was with Professor Sanders, whose guiding principle was not to trust his fellow professors, was more satisfactory. And that Biobaku by then had an admin building, a luxury that his predecessors did not have, and which, I quote, eliminated or reduced the physical separation of related departments or divisions. The Oyinbo that put the registry together next to each other and around the Senate building knew what they were doing. Today, the registry is far-flung all over the place with attendant consequences, perhaps by those who really did not understand the concept of a registry. It's a great pity. So the registry, according to Abiri, set the pattern for the Nigerianization of other sections of the University College in succeeding years, with a staff of 11. It's a great pity, but quite illuminating, that our very first Nigerian registrar was reported to have said that being a university administrator was not a serious career for any young man with ambition. You can understand why our young ones are pursuing PhDs. Little wonder. Maybe it simply means if you can't beat them, join them. I come to the birth of an independent university under Mr. J.D. Irwin. He was the first registrar and worked with Professor Parry. In the registry, Nigerianization was given another impetus with the appointment of Mr. N.K. Adamolekun as the first deputy registrar in 1958. Mr. Irwin led a registry that was being groomed to assume the responsibility of an autonomous university expectantly awaiting independence. Changing circumstances began to affect the scope of the powers and authority of the registrar. The increase in student numbers demanded a new approach to the management of their affairs, and the establishment of a students' union by 1956 made this more imperative. A violent demonstration over food made on 3rd of November 1957 led to the rustication of the entire student body. The direct result was the establishment of a standing committee on student affairs and administrative changes in the halls of residence. Porters and domestic wardens were to report directly to hallmasters, and domestic wardens were to report directly to them as well, and no longer to the registrar. This will culminate in the recommendations in later years of the Abusoye panel on the ABU crisis and the creation of the Deanship of Students. And this marked the beginning of the decentralization of the registry and the reduction in the scope of responsibility and authority of the registrar. We now come to the turbulent years, a crack at the top. The registrar was Mr. N.K. Adamolekun. He was the 5th registrar of UCI and the 1st registrar of the University of Ibadan. He served under Kenneth O. Dike, who was 1st principal and then 1st vice chancellor, and as well as Professor Labo. The registry had now become totally Nigerian. Professor Dike was appointed in October 1962 and inducted in 1963. I came across that word. I didn't know that vice chancellors were inducted, but apparently they are not just appointed, they are inducted. Okay, and Adamolekun, who had been appointed deputy registrar in 1958, was appointed registrar in 1960. There was a flurry of activities to birth the University of Ibadan, and the registry was certainly a central figure in its role as the custodian of university records, rules, regulations, and precedents. The University of Ibadan Act came into being in 1962 and removed academic and financial affairs from the responsibilities of the registrar. If you read that law today, that is how it is, until an amendment restored the academic one to the registrar. However, so the separation of individual and corporate powers became a reality. However, national political issues and internal suspicions were to bring the registrar and his registry almost to breaking point. According to Olorun Time in 1973, by the 1964-65 session, I quote, "A crisis which began as a conflict of opinions about the structure and functioning of the registry particularly over the position thereof of A.E. Oraidubanya, with the same ethnic background as the Vice-Chancellor, and between the Vice-Chancellor and the Registrar, who held divergent views on the manner best suitable for decentralizing the administration in a rapidly expanding university, that is Adeleye, 1973, had become public. This crisis, as I said, had its antecedent in the draft bill for the amendment of the University Act of 1962, which removed academic and financial affairs from the duties of the registrar, and an earlier recommendation of the Vice-Chancellor that the positions of Bursar, Chief Engineer, Director of Medical Services, and the Academic Secretary, what we call the Deputy Registrar Academic now, be given professorial status, either because of the scope of their responsibilities or on their personal merit. Considering that the Academic Secretary had been put on steps leading directly to full equality with the Registrar in anticipation, the Registrar felt he could discern a design to undermine his position in these developments, and he called for a rectification of the anomaly if he was to exercise his powers. It did not help matters that the majority of the principal actors, including the chairman and other members of council, were of the same tribe with the Vice-Chancellor. According to Olorun Timehin, the VC and council saw the conflict as a struggle for supremacy and an act of insubordination. But their handling of it ended up tearing apart the leadership of the administration, as well as the senior staff, both academic and administrative, the University Workers Union, the Students Union, the press, and the radio. It's interesting that in October 1964, government informed council of its agreement to the request for an amendment to enable the registrar's function to embrace both academic and financial affairs, thus vindicating the registrar's position. In spite of this, the registrar was suspended from his functions and eventually sent on compulsory leave on grounds of insubordination without waiting for the report of its own committee set up to look into the matter. Naturally, we do not need a son to conclude that he will go to court, and the court ruled in his favor. The VC resigned soon after the 1996 coup. Council lost face. The university community became increasingly divided along ethnic lines. It took the intervention of General Gowon and the maturity of Sir Samuel Manuel, who had become the chairman of council, to finally settle the crisis. The destructive impact of this crisis has indelibly left its mark on the perception of academia, on the powers of the registrar, and the unrelenting efforts to whittle down the extent of such powers, often under the guise of administrative efficiency and decentralization. Apologies to the academia here. The internal power struggle within the registry, precisely between the registrar and his deputy or deputies, will rear its ugly head in future under different guises with varying consequences. In my opinion, the registry owes a lot to Mr. Hunter and Mr. Adamolekun, these men of principle who stood their grounds and fought for the honor and dignity of the position of registrar and the future generations of university career administrators, often without the loyalty and support of their subordinates, but always at great personal sacrifice. We come to the War and Reconstruction years under Mr. S.J. Okudu, S.J. as he was fondly called. He was the first alumnus and the sixth registrar. He served Professor Urishe Thomas, Professor Tekena Tamuno, and Professor Laide. Mr. Okudu was an affable man. He was also an easygoing and totally approachable leader. He maintained very cordial relationship with the academia and members of his registry, with very few exceptions, if any. One of my earliest recollections as a young administrator, was seeing him in the staff club during lunchtime with Chief Ekanemita, then a deputy registrar, sitting at the same table, surrounded by Professor Dudley and Tam David West, among others, discussing and ribbing each other with jokes. The registry had matured and attracted a good number of graduates and experienced individuals, including graduates of the University of Ibadan, perhaps having witnessed the acrimony and destruction of esprit de corps that power struggle and internal division within the registry in the previous administration brought. This gentleman was not about to fight anybody. He gave his opinions on issues, but acquiesced with grace to his vice-chancellor. Also, the war years had taken its toll on the psyche of the average Nigerian and called for circumspection in utterances, interpersonal relationships, and leadership style under a military regime. The sudden removal of Professor Orishe Jolomi Thomas, then Vice-Chancellor by the military, called for caution. Council presided over an era of war and national reconstruction and resolved to a large extent the internal crisis within the university with the active participation of the visitor on 30th November 1967. The maturity and congenial personality of Vice-Chancellor Tamuno, we all know him, a historian, must also have helped to stabilize the polity, especially in an area of financial stringency. Our very dear Mr. Okudu was an agent of stabilization and professionalism in the registry. From that terrible era, we now move to our season of anomie and stagnation. Anomie is a state of hopelessness and helplessness. Chief Ekanemita was the 7th and longest serving registrar. He served for 12 years. Okudu served for 10. He served Professor Olaide, Professor Banjo, and Professor Oyediran. One could surmise that these were years of acute instability, zero funding, and infrastructural decline and stagnation. The tools to carry out the job of administration were simply not there. I'm sure that our Mama Ajegboye can recall those years. Ordinary paper was not available. Promotion exercises became a thing of the past. And when they were carried out after a lot of individual and group protests, it was notional. Some of us can remember notional promotion. That is, no change in salary, no payment of arrears. The registry was severely hit, and administrators resorted to creative and sometimes questionable strategies to get their work done. Under these circumstances, training and development was seen as a luxury item when the university could neither generate water nor electricity. The junior staff cadre was worse hit. The usual cry of nepotism, tribalism, high-handedness, and chronism was rife. The position of principal assistant registrar became the bus stop for career administrators, and frustration set in, especially as there were only 2 positions of deputy registrar, and the registrar was not in a hurry to fill the one that was vacant. At any rate, all vacancies were frozen. Acrimonious memos and petitions to the Vice-Chancellor and Council became the order of the day. To make matters worse, no one knew the age of the registrar, and so the prospect of any of his deputies attaining the position before the retirement age of 60 seemed very far-fetched. The registry became polarized and largely dysfunctional. It was under this cloud that the College of Medicine was created and was seen as a window of opportunity for the more senior principal assistant registrars, senior in quote, many of whom had spent 15, sometimes 20 years or more at that level. And they had been at loggerheads with the registrar, holding him responsible for their misfortune. One could almost deduce from the events of that period that the statute of the college, with all due apologies to Professor Akonde, among other things, was designed around the key personalities in the internal war among the top echelon of the registry, designed to keep the interference of the registrar in particular and the university management in general to the barest minimum, if at all. This assumption does not seem far-fetched, considering the relationship between the most senior of the principal assistant registrars, who later emerged as the first college secretary and chief economiter. More importantly, till today, is that the registrar was not even enabled to be in attendance at the meeting of the Court of Governors. He's not there. A body that is subject to the general control of the council, of which the registrar is secretary. Yes, please. In the euphoria of independence from the university, fresh letters of appointment on behalf of the Court of Governors were issued to the non-teaching staff of the then Faculty of Medicine. Immediately, the college was created. Some of the career administrators, including those who helped to create the dichotomy, quickly saw that they were about to be caged in the college as big fishes in a small pond, with deleterious effects on their ambition as administrators in the larger registry. The situation was quickly reversed, and I was a staff of the college, came back under the council of the University of Ibadan. It is to Chief Economiter's credit and the doggedness of those who dared to question the status quo, especially the late Mr. J.A. Balogun, that 4 additional positions of deputy registrar were created in 1992 to take charge of establishments, student affairs, general administration, an additional one that will briefly cover one of the aborted collegiate experiment, bringing the established post of deputy registrar to 6. Yet, Ms. Chief Economiter was perhaps one of the most erudite and knowledgeable administrators that ever led the registry. He could see through any rules designed by academia and stood his ground with facts, figures, the law, rules, regulations, as well as precedents, where the fortunes of the registry and the scope of responsibility and authority of the registrar were concerned. He had knowledge, he had the confidence, he had the reach, and he had the courage to take on everyone and everybody. He was definitely a thorn in the flesh of overzealous or megalomaniac academics, as well as ambitious administrators. Unfortunately, and perhaps because of his taciturn nature, he was often misunderstood and berated by most of the community, especially his constituency. I was there in a meeting of the registry called by Chief Economiter when our senior colleagues decided to pass a vote of no confidence in their registrar. Fortunately or unfortunately, it came to nothing. The registry owes more to him than we care to give him credit for. He fought Professor Laide's chancery to a full stop, and he won. He would not allow the registry to be decimated. He refused to have the physical office of the registrar reduced in size or taken over by a newly created office of Deputy Vice Chancellor Administration. In my opinion, it took over the battle where Hunter and Adamelekun stopped. We may not agree with their views. We may disagree with their methods or personal attributes, but they stood tall and fought for their belief in the system, defending the registry which they held in trust for future generations. I come to the 8th registrar, Chief C.O. Arowolo. He served Professor Ebio Oyediro. Chief Arowolo's tenure spanned only 2 years, as he was already 58 years old when he became registrar, having been secretary to College of Medicine for about 10 years. All the same, Chief Arowolo ensured a successful job evaluation exercise undertaken by a firm of human resource professionals with a view to measuring scientifically the worth of our jobs as non-teaching staff, especially those members of the registry. Now we had it from the professionals. Our jobs were worth a lot more than we had been given credit for. The dividend was the creation of the position of Deputy Registrar for the Vice Chancellor's Office, the Postgraduate School, and the Center for External Studies, schedules that were hitherto manned by other senior assistant or principal assistant registrars, thus bringing the total established positions to 8 deputy registrars. Unfortunately, the posts were not filled before he retired in 1996. I come to the era of renewal and regeneration. And maybe at this point I should step aside and allow somebody else to come and read it. By the powers conferred upon me and the blessing of our chairman, I go ahead and I read it. Chief Mojisola Oladipo, first female and 9th registrar. That figure 9 is very important. She served Professor Adewoye, Professor Falashe, and very briefly, Professor Bamiro. By every stretch of the imagination, this young lady stood next to no chance of becoming the registrar in a conservative university, replete with experienced, highly qualified and knowledgeable alumni administrators. In terms of age, she was the youngest. In terms of level academic qualification, she did not possess the highest. As for number of years of cognate experience, she had the least. She spent most of her working life outside the main campus and had no relations of any sort in the main campus, having been sequestered in the College of Medicine for the better part of her administrative career. Thank God for the tradition of excellence, which had been the hallmark of appointments in the university. She was appointed the first alumna and the 9th registrar of the university on 1st January 1996, exactly 4 years after her appointment as deputy registrar. How did this happen? Preparation met opportunity. What is the definition of success? Success is preparation meets opportunity. And I learned from the best. I was privileged to have been mentored by Mr. S.J. Okudu, who incidentally employed me as an administrative officer, introducing me to the culture and final traditions of a university, including the importance of good interpersonal relationship. I was coached by Chief Economiter on knowledge and strategy. There is a strategy to everything, especially in academia. And I was nurtured by Chief E.O. Adetunji, former registrar of Obafemi Awolowo University, who incidentally was also a faculty officer in the Faculty of Medicine, and also by Chief Adegbite, who was a deputy registrar in Ife. They nurtured me and taught me the nuances of regulations and the precedents, such that you can bend the rule without breaking it. You can interpret regulations with a human face without sacrificing discipline, integrity, or the regulation, the law. I drank from the sea of knowledge and competencies of these great men. I also learned the hands-on skills from my junior colleagues, especially the messengers, the clerks, the typists, and the records officers, especially the executive officers. My typist, when I was appointed in 1975 to the Faculty of Medicine, taught me how to put agenda papers together and how to write the minutes of meetings. The lesson here is that anyone who wants to succeed must learn from others, especially your subordinates, and you begin to learn right from the start of your career, ignoring the opinions of gossips and negative thinkers, especially the females. I'm talking of female administrators. If you are to listen to gossips, she's so-so-so's girlfriend, she's that one's whatever, you are not going to get anywhere. I will forever be grateful to these personalities who believed in me long before I became aware of my own potentials. I inherited a registry that was aging, fragmented, disillusioned, technology averse, and imagine from years of zero funding. Principal officers rode second-hand vehicles that broke down on the roads to their embarrassment and often subsidized administrative work from their pockets. Promotions were in arrears, offices and equipment were dilapidated, unacceptable sharp practices were rife, and the unions, staff and students were arrested. We rolled up our sleeves and set to work. Covered by grace and favor of the Almighty, we achieved, among other things, the following. We embarked on merit-driven recruitment that was open to all, both internally and externally, thus injecting fresh blood and vigor into an aging registry. We filled vacancies at the level of deputy registrar, which had been unfilled for some time, thus enhancing leadership in the registry, and created the Registry Executive Committee, which served as a sounding board for the registrar, assumed responsibility for groups of units in the registry, and enabled inclusive and robust decisions that could be defended. We made continuous staff training and development from the point of recruitment, and you heard from one of the horses' mouth. And periodically thereafter, both internally through our Faculty Officers Forum, registry, seminars, and so on and so forth, locally and internationally, a focal point of our administration for all cadres, without bias for gender or tribe. We unified the registry through an open-door, inclusive, consultative, and transparent administration, restored esprit de corps among members, and healed the schism between the registry staff of the College of Medicine and the Central Registry of the University, a situation that had hitherto been the norm since the inception of the college. And throughout my tenure, the deputy registrars and secretaries to college were posted from the university. We cleaned up the agent's table of absenteeism, presenteeism, admission and certificate fraud, and we restored discipline in the rank and file by dismantling entrenched interests and rewarding excellence while sanctioning unacceptable behavior no matter whose horse was God. We restored dignity, professionalism, efficiency and effectiveness to the registry, and importantly, we gave our registry international recognition through other professional associations in the UK and the USA, not only for Ibadan, but all over Nigeria and beyond. Our registry, for once and throughout my tenure, became the department to check with on all issues. The registrar took her place as the real chief administrative officer of the university, the custodian, interpreter, and advisor on rules, regulations, and precedents, both in word and in deed. We enshrined excellence in service delivery and delivered on efficiency, effectiveness, timeliness, and cost consciousness to our council, senate, congregation, and convocation. As a matter of fact, our graduation and matriculation ceremonies became the template that others tried to emulate. We embarked on institutional advancement drive and attracted much-needed benefactions to the university. The list is too long for this presentation. We restored confidence and loyalty by clearing the backlog of promotions, running to almost 10 years in some cases, including the academic, senior admin, and junior staff, and we elongated the career progression of some cadres, especially among the junior cadre. We changed the face of university publication, making them more attractive and user-friendly. We insisted that technology is the key to efficiency, and we urged, pushed, blackmailed, and encouraged as many as possible to embrace the computer, starting with the registrar herself. We cared for the welfare of staff and interpreted regulations with a human face, without sacrificing integrity and discipline, and we restored Aberdeen staff quarters to the junior staff as was originally intended. We also embarked on rehabilitation and facelift for this much neglected part of the university and set up a proper representative system for its administration. We resuscitated CONU, that is the Committee of Registrars, and changed the attitude of vice-chancellors regarding this association. We also revived ANUPA, that is the Association of Nigerian Professional Administrators, as its training arm, thus encouraging professionalism through training and self-development. As a registry and as an individual, we were hard-pressed on every side, yet not crushed. We were perplexed, but never in despair. We were persecuted, but we were not forsaken. We were struck down, but we were not destroyed. We weathered the storms, but our ship did not sink. We left a registry we could be proud of and bequeathed a legacy for generations to come. We could not have achieved that much without cohesion, dedication, mutual understanding and respect, as well as commitment to the common good by every member of the registry, especially the deputy registrars. I am forever grateful to the likes of Dr. Mrs. Ogumodede, Mrs. Adegboye, our mama here, Alaji Okusanya, and Mr. Akinseye, who guided this neophyte registrar in the early months and never withdrew their support, even when we disagreed on issues. Later, I had the luck to have knowledgeable and devoted deputy registrars that I could devolve authority to, in the persons of Mrs. Bolojo Oku, Mrs. Ete, Dr. Mrs. Oduneye, Dr. Mrs. Olarinmoye, who all took real charge of their divisions with authority, and of course, the ever-smiling and indefatigable Mrs. Modupe Adkinriade, who ran the Vice-Chancellor's office with aplomb. Mrs. Kehinde Olatunji, the most senior deputy registrar in 2004-05, held the fort while I was away for the 10-month course at the National Institute in Kuru, and that was the penultimate year of my tenure. She proved her mettle and wide experience in the running of the registry and delivered the appointment of a new vice-chancellor faultlessly. Pastor Dedele, a quiet, unassuming, and tireless administrator, and Mr. Onweme, who on retirement was made the first administrative secretary of our international school, held council office at various times and excelled. And Mr. Adegoroye, who was my direct assistant in the registrar's office, as well as secretary to CONU for many years, he lightened the onerous and unrelenting administrative burden of the registrar. Because they were so efficient, all of them, the university community thought that I was brilliant. Now the secret is out. Finally, Mrs. Omotayo Ikotun, even as a senior assistant registrar, had proved herself fearless and meticulous, taking on the course, the certificate fraudsters, the admission racketeers headlong. It was therefore easy to make a case for her promotion to the position of principal assistant registrar and her eventual appointment as deputy registrar. She and all the officers who worked in the admissions, exams, and student records units during my registrarship contributed immensely to the sanitation of our admission and certificate verification process, and thus preserved the sanctity of our certificates. She would later succeed me as the second female registrar of this university. What is the lesson here? A registry that is cohesive achieves much, and the dignity thus accorded the registrar trickles down to every level of the administration. The contribution of each individual either drives a nail into the coffin of the registry department or adds a feather to its cap of relevance and dignity. A house that is divided against itself cannot stand. Definitely, the one person that enabled my success was the Vice Chancellor, under whom I served for the greater part of my 10-year stint, in the person of Professor Ayodele Falashe. Please clap for this gentleman. No matter how driven, brilliant, or hardworking you are as a registrar, hope you're listening. If your Vice Chancellor does not believe in you and support you, your efforts will be an exercise in futility. A self-effacing but brilliant physician whose watchword was discipline and integrity, Professor Falashe absolutely refused to be a tyro. And that is homework for you, administrator. Go and find out the meaning of a tyro. He never micromanaged. Rather, he provided the ambience and support for every officer in management and held us all accountable for our departments. He insisted on excellence, accepted no excuse for tardiness, and did not hesitate to sanction substandard performance or unacceptable behavior, no matter how high or how low you are. He never encouraged gossips or backbiting, and he checkmated every ambitious subordinate and self-serving academics by directing them either to the head of the department concerned or, in the case of the subordinates, back to their own departmental heads. If you went to Professor Falashe and told him, do you know where he would say, just wait a minute, I'll be with you. And he would press, call me so-so-so. And when that person came in, he would say, now, tell me now what you wanted to tell me about him. And what was the result? Oh, no, sir, it was not like that. Thus, I was free to pursue my initiatives without let or hindrance as long as I delivered, which, thanks to God, I always did. He provided the leadership necessary to turn the tide of retrogression and anachronism which the university was fast descending to, but he claimed no glory for himself. Rather, he allowed all of us to shine. Thank you, Professor Falashe. I now come to the 10th registrar, Mrs. Omotayo Ikotun. She served Professor Olufemi Bamiro and Professor Adewale. Mrs. Ikotun was the first registrar to serve a 5-year tenure and presided over a registry that had largely stabilized, and at a time when the university was facing a period of rapid growth and new initiatives. Yet, there was a gap at the leadership level of the registry because a whole generation of experienced and committed administrators who had provided the crucial support to her predecessor in office, was swept away by retirement age. We all know that definitely there will be a vacuum because it takes decades to understand the workings of a university as large and as complex and as steeped in tradition as the University of Ibadan. Still, she got support for the resuscitation of the moribund position of Deputy Registrar Legal Unit, which had been a shining star in the achievements of the previous administration. Lawyer Ajayi San, thank you very much for your efforts. She kept the registry afloat, especially during the turbulent times. Among her achievements was a review of the student handbook, the publication of the University Gazette, and a revision of the Standing Order of Council. Let us now come to the 11th registrar, Mr. O.I. Olukoya, who worked with Professor Adewale and Professor Lainka. Mr. Olukoya is the first candidate from outside not only UI, but outside the entire university system to occupy the position of a registrar in a university as old as Ibadan. A distinguished higher institution administrator in his own right, he embraced openness, transparency, humility, and wide consultation as the hallmark of his administration. During this time, staff development was once again given fresh impetus. The registry made significant progress towards the digital age. A lot of the core duties of administrators were automated, and e-administration gradually replaced the analog tradition, hopefully enhancing productivity and efficiency. One major effect was the ease and accuracy of production of transcripts and student records, which had been an intractable problem for all previous administrations. Perhaps the most significant is the numerical expansion of the personnel in the registry, along with a more progressive career structure and new designations to minimize stagnation and the attendant frustration among staff. What are the take-home points? From our history so far, we can deduce that the management style, the basic understanding of roles and authority, the character and principles of the chief executive, that is the vice chancellor, all have a lot of influence on the tenure and success or the failure of the registrar, and by inference, the registrar. The knowledge, skills, and attitude of a registrar, the knowledge, the skills, and the attitude of a registrar are critical ingredients for success or failure, as they have a direct bearing on the achievement of the Vice Chancellor's vision, mission, and objectives, and the health of the registry. Brilliance or knowledge without character. When we give our degrees, we say the person has been found worthy, both in character. Brilliance or knowledge without character, especially in the area of interpersonal relationship, edifying communication skills, as well as critical thinking, is a disaster, not only for the incumbent registrar, but the entire registry. Where these are lacking, the vice chancellors have consistently found willing hands to sideline the registrar and his or her registry, either by giving the responsibilities to the registrar's subordinates, who then begin to see themselves as alternative registrars with dire consequences for the cohesiveness of the registry. Alternatively, and more recently, they simply enlarge the chancellery, creating new positions of deputy vice chancellor or directorates that report directly to the VC. I am not talking about Professor Oyedewo. History in the making. That is 2018 to, that is history in the making. Mrs. Olubunmi Ofaloye. She's currently serving Professor A.I. Olayinka, December 2015 to, and she's our platinum registrar. and amiable, energetic, committed, approachable, elegant, well-bred, articulate, knowledgeable, and obviously fearfully and wonderfully made young lady, and definitely one of my proteges. It seems like yesterday that she was sitting in my office, shaking like jellyfish, and totally in awe of the registrar's office. As she was to recall later, I looked at her and said, "Young lady, I want intelligent people like you in my registry. You must apply, as we're about to recruit new administrative officers. The rest is history. I congratulate you on your appointment, and I wish you divine guidance and protection. Remember, you hold this position in trust for generations to come, and today's actions are tomorrow's history. Remember also that just as there is no forest without trees, a tree has never and will never make a forest. May God grant you the gift of men." My question to you is, what kind of legacy do you want to leave for the next generation? The registry in the next 70 years. The big question is, will the registry survive the next 70 years? Your guess is as good as mine. Felt in 2000 and Salmi in 2002 observed that as a consequence of change, universities are having to rethink their internal structures, building up new management and decision-making structures, and reconsidering career and reward systems. So it's no surprise that we have new management and decision-making structures. And because the universities have had no choice but to embark on a process of upgrading their systems of management, building on the functional aspects of their structures, and devising systems and techniques to overcome dysfunction. I hope the registry will not become dysfunctional. The unrelenting global challenges, the biggest of which are technology, artificial intelligence, the mass media, which has changed the way and the speed at which we communicate, the drive for professionalization, global ranking and league tables, high mobility of labor, dwindling global resources, all are unrelentingly changing every aspect of human behavior. They are affecting market demand, supply, and expectations in all professions. You can have an e-lawyer now, and an e-doctor, and an e-accountant. So it's not confined to the registry, including academia and virtually all aspects of university operations. If a chip can manage your meetings, which incidentally shall be virtual and unlimited by space, advise you on rules and regulations, laws, precedents in any language and across the globe, if that chip can keep and retrieve and dispatch needed records and data in the twinkle of an eye, and take immediate and seamless follow-up action, what would you need a large army of human administrators for? I can assure you that the university of the immediate future will also not tolerate lecturers that are rooted to their immediate classrooms, dictating from their ancient notes, to students sitting in large lecture theaters. The future is here. Already, staff recruitment, students admission, examination administration, some board and committee meetings are being carried out virtually. The Y, the X, and the future generations are in a hurry, and they do not subscribe to a lot of red tapeism and bureaucratic arrogance. They are perpetual applicants, hardly staying in one job for long, creating frustration for their bosses who were brought up in the analog tradition and are used to finding their subordinates at their desks, whether or not they had any task at hand. Even right now, there are complaints about lack of commitment to the job by a number of administrators whose interest is severely divided between their studies, their businesses, or search for new jobs, leaving them little or no time to learn and master the art, the science, the trade that is called university administration. They thus become mere bystanders and spectators at crucial policy meetings. And because of that, their inaction already negates the claim that administrators are the custodians, interpreters, advisors, implementers, and so on of universities' rules, regulations, precedents, and tradition. Why will anybody want to invest in such a department? We only need to observe the number of deputies to vice chancellors, the emergence of new professionals and technocrats, vis-a-vis the position of the registrar on the protocol list, to confirm the prediction of Salmi, Felt, and others. It has therefore become imperative that the registry should move from merely administering the status quo to fashioning out ways of managing the complex structures and systems that the university as an institution has become, if it is to survive the next few decades. I hope that this summit will chart a path for continuity and change to ensure the future of a robust, relevant, and virile registry that is truly a major player in the actualization of our university's vision and mission of being a world-class university. May God help us. Conclusion. The Registry University of Ibadan has come a long way from a department made up of a team of men who had not only never worked in a university administration, but had not even seen one at work, comprising 2 career administrators, administering 104 students and a handful of teachers, to a department that now comprises 82 well-educated, highly qualified, and experienced university administrators, providing service to 1,524 academic staff in 16 faculties, a college of medicine, a postgraduate school, several institutes, a school of business, a center for long-distance learning, as well as several thousand senior and junior non-teaching, highly articulate and lettered staff. It has weathered many storms, fought many battles, but still standing tall. You've come a long way, baby. Happy 70th birthday, Registry University of Ibadan. In conclusion, please. In conclusion, please let me finish. I must say, give my appreciation. I thank the technical committee for putting this summit together and therefore making it possible for me to give this keynote address, the first time the registry of the university would formally invite me for such interaction after my departure from the seat 12 years ago. And I suspect that the chair of the organizing committee, Mrs. Shola, was the one that suggested my name for this enviable task. What a pleasure and a sense of fulfillment to see quite a number of those I recruited, trained, nurtured, and mentored, now holding top positions in the registry. May God honor you all. Finally, to all those holding leadership positions in the system, especially as career administrators, let me remind you of what we said at the beginning. Some of them, that is our antecedents, left a name behind them, so that their praises are still being sung today, while others left no memory and disappeared as though they never existed. Which class would you want to belong to? The ball is in your court. Thank you.
Wow. Wow, and I'm having goosebumps.
Thank you very much, ma. Nothing to add. Wow. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, she has said it all. Nothing more to add. But that is not to say that this opening ceremony has come to an end. We'll still move on because we had other programs shortly highlighted earlier. So may I introduce to this gathering one of our resource persons, Engineer Wale Adediran, FNSC, MCIPM. He came in while Chief Ladipo was delivering her speech. May I request Mr. Adediran to come to the high table, please? Thank you. And may I also recognize the presence of one of the registry's loans to other institutions, the Registrar of the Augustine University, Epe, Mrs. Margaret Itohan Aziba. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, we are on comments by special guests. The chairman has an appointment and has to leave early. So we're just requesting our special guests to give their goodwill messages within 2 minutes. And may I humbly request the first ever provost of the College of Medicine, Professor Iyo Akonde, to give us his goodwill message.
Thank you very much. The chairman of this occasion, a very distinguished former Pro-Chancellor, Chairman of Council, Professor, I've called him Professor, maybe with the permission of the Vice Chancellor, he becomes a Professor. My namesake, Wale Olanipekun, the Vice Chancellor, the Deputy Vice Chancellor, the Registrar of the University, the distinguished keynote speaker, who is also a distinguished former registrar of this university, other distinguished personalities here. May I just stand on the existing protocol? It is indeed a great honor and privilege for me to have been invited. I only arrived back in the country a few days ago, and as the registrar said, as an emeritus professor, I duly sent a note to the Vice Chancellor to announce my arrival and the registrar to say that I'm back. Because even though I'm an unpaid emeritus professor, I still have to pay allegiance to the distinguished officers of the university. This is the first of this type of summit. I've never seen this type before. Thanks to the tutelage of Chief Mrs. Muji Ladipo, who obviously, as a registrar, had all the things she mentioned. I can testify. I can testify that the College of Medicine, she said it will not be the same what I did. But what I did was exactly what she has said. She was a young assistant registrar in the College of Medicine when it started, but her advice and her contributions are enormous. I was not surprised that after going through the College of Medicine, she spent most of her working career there. She emerged as a registrar of this university. And I believe that the current registrar, too, has followed that pattern. She has also been groomed in the College of Medicine, and I'm happy to see that she has arrived. She has landed. She started working very hard, and we can all see what she has done. I congratulate her on her appointment. I congratulate the Vice Chancellor for seeking her out and making sure that she is appointed here. I believe the Provost of the College of Medicine is also here. Also very proud of you. We're all quite proud of you. We know you will succeed. This is a very innovative thing. The theme, adding value for global relevance in a 21st century university, is very appropriate. And the keynote speaker had gone through the footprints in the sand of times. Really, I'm sure, I hope it's been published. It should be fully published and widely circulated. So I thank you all for your your presence. I thank the distinguished chairman for coming, for finding time to come. I'm sure whenever you invite him, you will always put everything aside and come. So thank you very much, sir. Thank you, Vice Chancellor. Thank you, Registrar. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much, sir. May I request Mrs. Omotayo Ikotun, a former registrar of this university and presently the registrar, Kwaladaisi University, to make our brief remarks.
The chairman of this occasion, Chief Wole Olanipekun San, the Vice Chancellor, and other principal officers here present, my predecessor in office, Chief Muji Ladipo, and other members on the high table, ladies and gentlemen, I must not leave out my egbons. And when I say my egbons, Mama Mrs. Rachel Adeboye and Mrs. Elizabeth Ete, who were so wonderful to me here while I was trying to learn the ropes in administration. My other abulos here seated in the registry, and our distinguished visitors who have come in here today to felicitate with the registry. You are all welcome. I think I'm the luckiest person here today. One, I was once the registrar of this great university. Two, I am on the leave of absence, still a staff of this university. Three, I am a registrar of a new university somewhere else. And the fourth reason, Bumi Falui was like a daughter to me in this university while I was here. By the special grace of God, I mentored him, and I say that publicly. I just want to plead with her to try and mentor others coming after her so that the registry will continue to be as vibrant as we expect it to be in this century. I also want to congratulate the university for turning 70, and I wish everybody in the university the best of luck. I wish the registry will remain a force to be reckoned with, especially in the 70th year of the university. Once again, I congratulate the university. Thank you all.
Thank you very much, ma'am. May I humbly request Mama Adeboye to come forward and make her brief remarks. Today, I'm happy to meet the best lawyer in the country. I've heard of his name. I read about him, but I've never met him. So thank you for giving me the opportunity. And as for the Vice Chancellor, somebody thought of the name Abel, because God decided he will give him the ability to lead this university to greater heights. So, my Vice Chancellor, able Vice Chancellor, I greet you, sir.
There's one thing I felt like doing this morning as I had baby Moji Ladipo. Those who did not meet us at Queen School, we normally call them baby QS. And as she was reeling out the history of the registry, I felt like getting up and dancing, saying, things are getting better, things are getting better. That was the song that came to my head, because we weathered the storm. We knew what it was. Each time you were promoted to the level of PAR, about 8 or 6 or 10 of us will go to the new candidate and say, welcome to the bus stop. Because it was a bus stop. She mentioned a name. And we could not grumble. So we increased in number. Promotion was in arrears. Each newcomer to PAR had a bus stop to stay. But today, as I said, things have gotten better. Things are getting better. And under the new baby, I call her baby because my first child is older than she is. That's for me. Things will get better for the registry. This is the first time. She's not quite 6 months in office and is getting the registry to sit up, to look forward, to have a vision, to have a dream for the future. The future belongs to those who can dream, who can have a vision. So when the invitation came, I said, my God, yes, registry upturns. So I'm happy to be here today. I don't have much today to say. I don't want to go through the ugly past, but I'm happy I'm alive to be here and to know that the registry, not only the registry, but the university, it has to come to its original position, the first and the best, not only in West Africa. In the 70s, I think Professor Akande can bear me out. When you pass out of this university, you go straight to your postgraduate. That was what he did. Am I right? There was no question mark about the degree. You were not asked whether you spoke English or not. Your MBBS was accepted for a master's degree, and if you wish, you could go on to PhD. How did we come to descend so low? So one of the things I would want the registry to do, how can we fund the university? If the nation fails, my able Vice Chancellor, if the nation fails, or if the government fails to fund the university, where else can we look? How else can we cope with the financial wherewithal to put this university back to where it rightly belongs, the first and the best? That is my prayer for this university. That is my prayer for the registry. And for the registry staff, the sky is the limit. You have good leadership. You are in good hands now. Please work as a team. Work as a team. And God will help all of us. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ma'am. I've been instructed to announce that this program is being streamed live on the UI site. And when we are through, we can always still go back there to watch it. May I request all members of the planning committee to step forward for recognition. Stella Oshola JP, M.A. Adewumi, G.O. Saliu, A.A. Agbaje, Dr. Fumilayo G. Adebiyi, K.O. Ogufolu, O.A. Omomogbe, E.O. Adeoye, and Vivian Alasho Adura. They are the gentlemen and ladies who have put this summit together. I would think it is only proper that they be duly recognized. As I invite the chairperson of the committee, Mrs. Stella Oshola, to give the vote of thanks.
I respect the protocol already established, but I will quickly say that in the case of Wole Olanipekun and Registry Summit, it was a successful outing. I really don't envy lawyers, but I like them. Sometimes they are here, some other times they are there, and at times they are in the middle. I want to really appreciate the chairman of today in person of Chief Wole Olanipekun, and I want to request every participant to please rise and join me in appreciating him. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you very much, Chief. May God bless you and take you back home safely. Why I decided to appreciate him this way is a secret, but I'll let it out because lawyers don't have secrets. Do you know that he's not been around? He came in last night for the purpose of this summit. You can imagine the Lagos-Ibadan road. You can imagine jet lag. You can imagine all the hassles. But because of his love for the University of Ibadan Registry, he ensured that he got here even before 9. Another round of applause for him. Sir, we thank you and God bless you. I will come to the founder and proprietor last. Start guessing who that is. I want to thank Mama Moji, as she's fondly called. Mama Moji employed me, and yes, that's why when she came in, we were all happy to see her, and we gave her a beautiful welcome with our smiles. And she's very happy to see all of us looking good, happy in the registry. When I went to Mama Moji in her office, I took a card to her. I said, from my late brother, Lai Afolabi. He said, I can't really remember him. But anyway, young lady, don't dress like a secretary to the interview. And I looked at what I was wearing. I said, oh, button-down gown with one funny pocket. I said, thank you, ma'am. That was the first time I met her. And then I met her at the interview. I was from outside. What it meant was that I was not working in UI at all. But she said she wanted to inject new blood and competent hands in the interest of the registry and the general interest of the university. So people like me had the opportunity of coming in. Thank you very much, ma'am. I'm sure you are happy to see those whom you brought in doing very well. I am proud to say that I'm not a pushover administrator. I am proud to be one. And wherever you find me, you find excellence, you find near perfection, though not perfect. Mama, thank you for that mentoring that you did when you were here. I want to thank the chief. I want to thank Professor Akonde and all others on the high table because of time, the registrars of other universities, and also our old mamas that are here. You look old, but you are not old. Maybe I'm deceiving you. You are really old. Oh. But you look beautiful in your different attires. We welcome you, ma. We welcome you, sir. Mr. Degoroye, Mr. Jegbomogun, all the deans. We really appreciate you. Directors, everybody that has come, even from the College of Medicine. And I want to go to our Mama Gio. You want to know who the Gio is. In our group, the planning committee, we gave her a name, Mama Gio. And that is the registrar. Madam Registrar, thank you for giving us the opportunity to serve in this capacity. We also appreciate your vision. And as we have said, we will give you our support 100%. To the founder and proprietor, that is the Vice Chancellor. We want to appreciate your support, sir. If we have laudable ideas and we don't have support from the proprietor, from the chief executive, we will just be coming forward with proposals and nothing will happen. But we thank you for your support and we look forward. Before I leave, I want to thank the resource persons. In fact, one of them came as early as 8:30. I met him in the hall. And Mr. Onime is from Italy. He came purposely for this. So this is indeed an international summit. We thank our speakers for coming. May God bless you all. We appreciate all those who have donated towards this. We pray that God will bless you all. To my members, you have all been wonderful. You have all been wonderful. And I really appreciate you. I am not a slave driver, but I insist that things must be done, and it has to be done. Even when we had to stay at meetings without meal till late in the night, I appreciate that zeal in you, that the registry is ours, and we must ensure that whatever the registry does succeeds. Thank you very much. To everyone that has come, please give yourselves this form of round of applause. 1, 2, 3. Again. 1. One more. Thank you very much, and God bless you all.
Announcements, please. We'll have group photographs outside. The tea break will be on our tables. And then the participants have been grouped. The groupings will be shown so that you know which group you belong to when we have group discussions and getting together. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, may we now rise for the anthems to declare this opening ceremony closed.